Some of the most horrific years in Australian history happened between the years of the 1980s through to the early 1990s. The Backpacker Murders was the name given to the 7 young backpackers who were murdered in the Belanglo State Forest, New South Wales, whilst backpacking around Australia. The man behind these gruesome murders was this man, Ivan Milat.
The star witness in Ivan Milat's murder trial was British tourist Paul Onions. Paul Onions was the luckiest backpacker who managed to get away from the serial killer. People believe that without Onion's statement, Milat could still be at large and still killing. Initially, Onions reported his encounter with Milat, but his report was lost to be discovered years later by the lead investigator of the time. In an interview in 1997, Onions recounts the day he met Ivan Milat, saying that the day still haunts him.
And then, for some reason, we just started to slow down a bit. And he just kept looking in his mirror. And if you can drive yourself, you find it a bit odd. And then I said, what's the problem, man? And he says,
release the radio signal, mate. When we get this guy out of Sydney, I'm going to pull over up the road and I'm going to get some cassettes from underneath the seat so we can listen to some music, eh?
That was his excuse, really, to get some cassettes from under the seat to put some music on. Well, it just seemed odd because there was actually cassettes in between us. Once the vehicle was pulled over and he got out to search under the seat, I thought, there's two sides to your brain. There's the calm side saying, you should be happy this guy's given you a lift. What are you worried about? Then there's the other side saying, hold on, there's something doesn't feel right there. So the initial reaction to me then was, well, I'll just stretch my legs and see how it provokes him.
Why are you getting out of the car?
After all, it's a sunny day and there are quite a few cars around.
I had a look around. I thought, well, what's the problem? Surely not here, not in this situation. So I thought I'll just get back in and see what happens. So I got back in the vehicle and just put my seatbelt on. He watched me do his. He got back in. So I thought, no problem at all. Then the next minute he jumps straight back out and says, I'll just have to look under the seat one more time. And I thought, this is it.
I'll level them with those cassettes, huh?
So he just bent over, looked under the seat, and just pulled out a revolver. And obviously all the questions was answered in one movement.
You know what this is? Easy. What's wrong, mate? But please, just calm down, mate.
And then the next minute he just pulled this rope from under the seat. And when I seen the rope, that just scared me more than the gun. But as soon as I seen the rope, I thought, that's going to be it's going to take a bit of time. He's going to do whatever he wants.
It's a robbery, that's what it is.
I just thought, I'm out of here, like. I was just, obviously panicking and just running off away from the vehicle. I heard him shout, stop else I'll shoot, stop else I'll shoot. And then I just heard the gun go off. And that was like, it was like a massive jolt to your system, like you knew it was surreal then, like, oh God, really panicking then. I was just really panicking then to try and stop some vehicles. And they obviously could see what was happening. And they was just stopping, slowing down, and just driving straight off.
Superintendent Clive Small was the lead investigator, setting up the large task force known as Task Force Air. The superintendent vividly remembers the diligent work of everyone involved, remembering the struggles he faced during the case. When Clive Small discovered Onion's report, he and his team were convinced they had their killer.
The pressure was quite considerable, and it was coming from a number of different perspectives. What we had, again, was a media that was trying to jump ahead of the investigation, so we had to get some control of that.
From the tender age of 17, Milat was getting in trouble with the law. He received charges ranging from car thefts, armed robbery, and breaking and entering. It wasn't until he was older that he started getting into more serious trouble with the law.
His first two victims were British backpackers Caroline Clark and Joanne Walters. They were found in the forest not far from where Paul Onions was attacked. Joanne Walters was stabbed multiple times, including once to her spine, resulting in her being paralysed. The zip on Walters' jeans were found undone, suggesting she was sexually assaulted. Caroline Clark was also stabbed, but was found to have died from multiple shot wounds to the head. Milat continued with this way of killing with all of his victims, with possible rapes, spinal injuries, and various traumas. All of the crime scenes seem to have similarities, from the wounds suffered from the victims to how the crime scene were found. All of the victims were found with their face down and their hands on their backs. Milat also covered them in kindling and leaves to conceal the bodies. These similarities helped the police link the murders. Ivan Milat was apprehended on the 22nd of May 1994 and officially charged for the 7 murders, giving him 7 consecutive life sentences. He was also given an additional 6 years for detaining for advantage against Paul Onions. According to the New South Wales Crimes Act 1900, murder shall be taken to have been committed where the accused causes a death done with either reckless actions towards the human or the intent to kill someone. Although Milat was not formally charged with rape or deprivation of liberty, we think these crimes should have been looked at more closely. These allegations may have been looked at through the 15-week trial, but a lot of the focus was understandably put on the murders. The information Onions was able to give gave the police reason to believe Milat was the serial killer, and they managed to get a warrant to the house of Ivan Milat. In the house, they found weapons used in the murders, various quantities of ammunition, and belongings of the backpackers. Ivan Milat appealed his case, wanting to be adjourned without legal representation. He later found a solicitor to help with his case on a pro bono premise. The ground of his appeal came to 3 things: Paul Onion's evidence being skewed after 4 years since his attack. It was argued that Onion's evidence was unreliable and should have been excluded from the trial. Milat believed there were discrepancies arising out of the original description given by Onions regarding Milat's appearance. During the trial, Onions made a mistake about the car that Milat drove, making Milat believe that he could have easily been mistaken when he was identifying him during the photo identification stage. Milat also made his appeal on the grounds of him not having good quality legal representation team. He believed that the representation he received was poor and therefore constituted a breach of his common law right to legal representation established in the landmark case Dietrich v. the Queen. However, the New South Wales Court of Criminal Appeal held that the right to legal representation did not depend on any level or quality of representation unless the quality was so poor that the accused was no better off without it. The court found this was not the case and therefore dismissed the appeal. Ivan Milat's lawyer, John Marsden, advised Milat to make a plea on the basis of his psychiatric condition. Marsden told Milat that the evidence they had against him was strong enough to incarcerate him for many years. Milat thought he was psychiatrically sound and fired John immediately. The next time they went to court, Milat made it known that he was no longer being represented by John. Because John Marsden wanted to take a plea on the basis of his client's psychiatric condition, we believe that Milat's defence team wanted to use the complete defence of insanity to get him acquitted and let him walk free of charge. Although after his lawyer was fired, we are unsure as to what defence was used in this case.
I urged him that if in fact it was true, then let's do a plea on the basis of his psychiatric condition. I didn't urge him to plead guilty. Stop. There was a lead up to getting to that. And then he sacked me.
Ivan Milat's case has influenced hitchhiking and backpacking in Australia. Before Ivan struck, many Australians and tourists would hitch a ride with strangers without a worry of getting harmed. After the occurrence of the backpacker murders, the amount of hitchhiking and backpacking around Australia decreased, as well as hitchhiking and backpacking becoming obsolete. Having fewer international tourists travelling to Australia was a possibility. This is due to the amount of worldwide publicity Ivan Milat's case got, adding fear to tourists.